welcome to another very special episode of Tokyo Daily. I'm your host, Lockie, and for those viewing at home, my hair's just a bit wet because I just smashed out a 12-minute 5K in inspiration of the Olympics. Nah, just kidding. I just got out of the shower, but I'll tell you what, I'm just absolutely pumped to review yesterday's results. While we've left the pool, we've entered onto the athletics track and the team sports are entering the final stages, and there's just so much on the line in quarterfinal matches, particularly being that there's a knockout and no chances of medals. So our teams are putting it all on the line, and it's been super, super exciting. I think, though, where I have to start from yesterday would have to be the 400-metre hurdles. I mean, it was one of the most phenomenal races ever. I think some people have called it the greatest race ever, with Norway's Karsten Warholm setting a world record, beating his own with the time of 45 seconds 94. That's right, that is for 400-metre hurdles. I think if anybody has ever... Even if you're a good runner, running 400 metres under 60 seconds is a phenomenal time and something that I think a lot of good runners would struggle with, let alone with hurdles and 15 seconds quicker than that. I mean, 45 seconds for just 400 metres without hurdles it's beyond me, to be honest, to even comprehend. And just the race itself was crazy. I think 6 of the 8 runners in the race broke either a world, continental or national record. As well as the fact that the first 5 runners in any other Olympic race would have been gold medalists. So the field was absolutely phenomenal. I just can't wait for Paris to see that again. It was absolutely exhilarating. So that was probably the highlight for me on the track today, apart from, of course, Peter Bowl making his way through to the final for the 800 with a phenomenal race. He just played it so well in the 800, and it was super, super exciting. So he's racing tomorrow, and I'm sure I'll jump into that a bit more with the preview. In terms of the basketball, the Boomers comfortably took care of Argentina, set up the match with USA, which is really the battle, in my opinion, of the big dogs. I know USA haven't been necessarily the form team, but, they've got absolutely stars on the list. They've got Holiday, Booker, Middleton, who've just recently come off finals runs. They've got Kevin Durant, the best player in the world currently. Is just an absolutely phenomenal team. But, the Boomers have been in outstanding form. I think Dante Exum's really starting to come into his own. Patty Mills, I don't think there's too much more than you can say. And I think with the current free agency news, the NBA teams are realising just how special Patty is too. I know San Antonio and Australia fans have known that for years, but it is just awesome to see him get some serious recognition. And I'll tell you what, I didn't think there'd be a player more popular than Patty, but I'll tell you what, Matisse Thybulle, he's pushing it. He is pushing it, mate. He's added so much to the team. We always knew he was a great defender, but his outside shot, his spacing of the floor, he's just such a great glue guy. So I've loved watching him. And I guess another highlight would have to be Jock Langdale. If he's not on an NBA team in the next 6 months, wow, he has been absolutely awesome in this Olympic campaign. I thought after the 2019 World Cup he would have started getting a bit more notice, but he's really putting it out there in these games. He's somebody that has really, really impressed me. But I can't wait for that game against USA. I think that's something that all of us should definitely tune into. Australia in the water polo has gone down 8-9 to the Russia Olympic Committee, so really flat. As we've been awesome up to that point, the Stingers, and they were talking about it being a really similar team to the Stingers that won gold at the 2000 Olympics, but unfortunately couldn't get there. But still, to make it to the quarterfinals was an awesome one. And unfortunately, the Where Do We Begin medal hopes also fell with Lena, with them going down. So bad luck to Lena and bad luck to the girls. And Harry Garside has secured a medal in boxing following his quarterfinal win. So this was quite interesting. But in boxing, they actually award a medal to the semi-final losers. So he's guaranteed a medal, and he's actually the first Australian to make the podium since 1988. He's a really alternative boxer. He points to his background in ballet for his quick feet within the sport. But he is awesome, and he's really, I guess, no surprise that he is. Alex Winwood spoke really highly of when he trained with Harry. So he's doing a phenomenal job. And also the Australian men's hockey have qualified for their final, having beaten Germany to last night. So awesome win by the guys, and we'll be cheering them on in the final. Unfortunately, Jai Edwards, Where Do We Begin alumni, he failed to qualify for the semi-finals. It was a really tactical race that was done slowly, and I'm really flat that he didn't go through, but he'll be better for the run, and I'm sure he'll be back for the next Olympics. Another Where Do We begin for past guest. Brooke Stratton came 7th in the long jump with a jump of 6.83. This was awesome. Massive improvement over a qualifying jump, which was 6.6 to make the final. And, just absolutely huge result from her coming 7th in the long jump. I think we're mentally proud for her. Where do we begin? And and it wasn't too far. Like, she's still the Australian record holder. She's still an absolute superstar and 7th in an Olympic Games. Just well done. And finally, in the NACRA 17, unfortunately, Jason, he couldn't back up his previous medals in the Rio Olympics, and he finished 5th in the NACRA 17 event today, but still another great job by him. And then finally, in a quite controversial, Aussie Curtis Marshall, he suffered a massive shock as he failed to achieve a single successful attempt to crash out the first opportunity of pole vault final. I think the first one's almost like a warm-up jump, but there's a few issues with him being in contact with Sam Kendricks, who tested positive for COVID-19, so he couldn't train for much. So I think that might have impacted him heading into the finals, but that's really disappointing for him. And then also just finally the rugby sevens. You can take the boys out of rugby, but you can't take the rugby out of the players. So the rugby sevens are in a bit of spot of bother flying home. Reports about getting drunk on the flight and all this stuff. And I think they might have gotten into a bit of trouble from the Olympic Committee after leaving the village, given the state that they left their training room. So I'm sure we'll hear more about that in the coming days. And I don't think we're surprised the sport in the centre of this is rugby. Finally, we have the medal tally. So China in first with 32 gold, closely followed by USA and Japan. And Australia's rounding out the top four with 14 gold medals and 33 overall. So we just really hope we can consolidate. A top 5 finish would be absolutely immense, but the other countries are chasing us down. So hopefully we can finish off a strong. I think we got a likely gold in the sailing coming up, and hopefully our hockey team, the butt boomers, hopefully they can sort of come strong and finish it off for us. Anyway, now Harps is a little snippet of his interview that he did. I don't know too much about it, so I'll just let the great man get into it and introduce his guest.
We've had some awesome expert guests throughout this Tokyo Daily series, but I felt just one piece has been missing to really get to know the stories behind the Olympics. And I'm joined tonight by a Japanese local born and bred in Tokyo. He's here to talk about all things Olympics and all things COVID from a Japanese perspective. His name is Yoshi Kasahara. And Yoshi, thanks so much for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me. Thank you. So we want to talk about the Olympics and the COVID-19. So that was a really, that was a big issue, and that was a really strange kind of way to start the Olympics. And then people are not so happy about that. Maybe we can talk about that.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what I've got you on the show to talk about. So I'll start with a very simple question. Do you think the Olympics should be happening?
Actually, I think everyone was so happy when Tokyo was chosen as a kind of a 2020 Olympics before the COVID started. So after the pandemic, so people were worried, and then I think the Prime Minister Abe postponed 1 year. So I think the government and people thought that would be all right in 1 year. Maybe we didn't know. So, but actually this year is even worse. So it's even worse. So, and people are not so happy about that. Many people are against. But the government and IOC, International Olympic Committee. So those two, I think IOC and Japanese government kind of started. So, and people didn't say or didn't, people actually protested, and people are so against, but the government didn't listen to us. I don't know why. So that was kind of happening. Yeah.
So are the protests just about all these thousands and thousands of athletes coming in from overseas? That's the main.
That's right. Yeah.
Okay.
So we were surprised. Oh, they're coming, and then we were surprised. Wow, we've got to start because so many people came over to Japan and then to compete in the Olympics. So, and if he said no, and he'd be so sorry because they were ready. So that was just what we felt. So, yeah.
Yeah. So, I think there were over 11,000 athletes coming into Japan throughout the games, which is an incredible number, really. But Why do you think the government has insisted and kept the games going?
I think when the Olympic Games started, I think the COVID even went worse. So many more people were suffering from COVID-19. But I think maybe the reason was one of the reasons is IOC. IOC said we can't stop. We can't stop now. So, and the secondary, probably money. I'm not sure. So probably because I don't know. So I think the Prime Minister Abe, I think, resigned because he was sick. He worked so hard. So and then after that, so Suga, Mr. Suga took over it, and then he is a kind of a, I don't know, he looks kind of a weak type of person. And then maybe someone is controlling him, or just maybe by himself, maybe wanted to do the business. But what I heard was, I don't know if it is true, but one of the dispatching companies in Japan, and it's one of the biggest, or maybe it's only the biggest one, Persona. The president of Persona, Hazel. So he's a really good businessman, and then he wanted to make money on the Olympics. And those companies really wanted to do the Olympics. So I thought, or people thought, maybe postpone one more year. So because the vaccine shortage going around. So maybe 1 year would be much kind of easier to hold the Olympics, or maybe just not having it. Well, many people had that kind of feelings. So we don't really know the reason. So, but I think people say no more Olympics, no Olympics, but still. So, what do you think as what do you think as an Australian, or in Australia? What people say about that? Do you have anything?
In Australia, lots of people honestly, to be honest, lots of people in Australia are very happy that it's happening, because we have lots of lockdowns here and people can just watch sport all day from their couch. And I think they understand that it's probably not the right thing to do in terms of COVID, but they're grateful for something to watch and something to keep them entertained, because it's sport non-stop for 2.5 weeks.
That's right. And we don't have lots of time differences, so it's really good. Yeah,
one
really
hour
good.
between Melbourne and Tokyo. But you were speaking about the politics before. Prime Minister Suga, at the moment, you described him as weak, and he's 72-year-old Prime Minister. That's very old for any world leader, no matter where they are. And I had a guest on the show a few days ago called Scott McIntyre. He's an Australian guy who's living in Japan. And he was speaking about how at the moment you're having record cases over there, 3,000 or 4,000 cases a day in Tokyo. But he thinks they might be hiding some numbers and not doing enough tests. And then once the Olympics are over, the numbers are going to increase. They're going to go into a big lockdown because there's an election coming up at the end of the year. What do you think about that?
That's really true. Maybe it's the Liberal Democratic Party is the one that's kind of ruling. That is a ruling party. So they think that's because people were against before the Olympics, but when it started, people were so happy actually watching it, because Japanese people are doing really well. Japanese athletes are doing really well, and Australian athletes are doing well also. Many, especially swimming. So swimmers are really doing really well. I think almost everyone is happy. So, and then that's probably one of the reasons that Liberal Democratic Party says, "Oh, you say you guys said we should have an Olympics, but you become so happy, and maybe that was a good thing." So we started. So that is something that they want to say. I think because of the election. So maybe not. I'm not sure, but and also many people think that it's only for money, but we don't really have audience there. So
Yeah, exactly.
no,
That's a good point.
we don't really make Japan doesn't make money though. So it's kind of also just paying money and then not so much revenue. So maybe
Not making anything back.
that is,
Yeah.
but still, but I think people are happy about that. So, but I'm very glad you said Australians are happy about that.
Thanks so much to Yoshi for coming on the show. And just before I hand it back to Lockie, the full interview with Yoshi Kasahara will be out later today, hopefully about 35 minutes. We go into some really interesting areas, so keep an eye out for that. And also, Lockie didn't mention, because he recorded this before this happened, in the beach volleyball, an amazing result. The Australian women's pairing of Taliqua Clancy and Mariafe Artacho del Solar have knocked off the number one team in the world, Canada, Sarah Pavan and Melissa Humana Paredes. So they're into the semi-finals against Latvia. They won 2-1. And yeah, an amazing performance. Went past midnight, that one. So yeah, I'll just hand it back to Lockie now.
Thanks for that, Harps. That was an absolute cracker. I wasn't expecting that, but that was really good, and I'm really looking forward to the full interview coming out. That was a nice little snippet, and I'm sure that all the listeners really enjoyed that too. So, as of course, we always start our preview with our Where Do We Begin alumni. Probably said alumni too much time on the spot, but it is what it is. And Carly McCulloch, so she's competing in the women's Kieran at 5:30 p.m. She's the last Where Do We Begin guest that's still in the Olympics. So fingers crossed. We really want one of our past guests to get a medal, and we're absolutely cheering you on, Carly. So yeah, super excited for that. We also have the Opals. They take on USA at 1:40 in a quarterfinal match. After an amazing win against Puerto Rico, anything's possible for the Opals. They haven't had a great start in the group matches, but I think given that already we've seen just in terms of the women's hockey went undefeated through the groups, as well as the Stingers who had really strong group form in the water polo, that group form doesn't really matter when it comes to a final. So yeah, I think we're a great chance in this match. We also have Peter Bowl in the 800 metre final at 9:05, so put that one in your calendars. That is one that is not to be missed. He's been in immense form, and if he medals, would be absolutely huge. We also have Genevieve Gregson. She's in the 3,000 metre women's final at steeplechase at 8 p.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time. Always really interesting, the steeplechase. As well as Karina Lee. So she's Australia's sole competitor in the women's 10K marathon swimming event. So that's at 7:30 Australian Eastern Standard Time tomorrow. So make sure you get up bright and early for that, because that's always a really cool endurance event. It's just amazing how far these athletes can swim. 10 kilometres. How many laps of the local 25 pool is that? We also have the women's 10 metre platform at 4 p.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time. Australia's two representatives competing, Nikita Haynes as well as Melissa Wu. And Melissa Wu, she's an unbelievable athlete, and she's been in really strong form in previous Olympics. She finished 5th in Rio, 4th in London, and 6th in Beijing. So hopefully she can just go that little bit further and take a medal. And that's all. Those are the main events that I've taken an interest in tomorrow. Thanks so much for tuning in, and I'm sure that Harp will be back tomorrow for another episode of Tokyo Daily. Thank you.